This episode on the Vom Seymour playlist is sponsored by Phytovite. Phytovite is a daily canine supplement, adding vitamins, organic trace minerals, probiotics, prebiotics, and digestive enzymes, all in easy-to-feed powders you can just mix into their meals. Learn more at drschoicesupplements.com, because your dog is more than a pet. Get in on a training system that's been proven to work. With a Vom Seymour Kennel membership, you get access to exclusive specialized training videos, easy to understand training tips, and trackable checklists, all so you know what to do, when to do it, and why it matters. You'll also get community support, and you can choose plans that include direct coaching from Joe by phone, text, or video. Get started on the path to building a dog you can trust in the field by visiting VomSeymourKennel.com. That's VomSeymourKennel.com today.
Welcome to the Vom Seymour podcast, your one-stop shop to versatile bird dog training.
Hey everybody, today I have my buddy Mark White on the podcast. We met at Armbruster a few years back. He's been to my kennel up in Wisconsin a bunch of times, and I've showed him some of the training tips and methods that we use. Mark is a solid dog guy, and I'm excited to talk about dogs and life with him. I'd like to focus today on puppies and VJP testing. Let's get started, Mark. How did this whole thing get started with you?
Back in, I got my first membership to GNA back in 2011, but it started, my dog life started a little bit before that. I have a barbecue restaurant in South Alabama, and this old gentleman used to come in all the time, Mr. Hill, and he knew that I was a big game hunter. And he would always ask me if I ever been bird hunting before, and I hadn't been bird hunting, not one time in my whole life. So he started taking me bird hunting, and they used English setters and English pointers. And the gentleman that used to take us quail hunting, he came on bad health, and they asked me if I wanted to take his dogs and all his equipment. So overnight, I was a bird dog man, and those first two English setters really taught me a lot, let me tell you. But dogs, as you know, Joe, they open up lots of doors for you. And I was quail hunting here close to the house at a preserve, and I saw my first Drahthaar, and I was totally infatuated with how they looked and this dog's behavior. And so I went on my mission to find my first Drahthaar that night. I'm pretty sure I didn't sleep a wink and stayed up all night on the internet and hunting down my first Drahthaar. In that process, I winded up reaching out and emailing and telephoning everybody that had a phone number and email on the internet associated with Drahthaars, and talked to a bunch of guys about it. I thought that I wanted a finished dog, and a gentleman by the name of Brant Hardy, who was the chairman of GNA at the time, he wound up answering my calls every time that I called, and we became good friends, and he really helped me find my first dog.
Yeah, and then so Brant pointed you in the direction of a fellow up in Germany. Is that correct?
Yeah, so, Brant has a lot of contacts over there. Being the chairman, he was back and forth to Germany a bunch during his tenure, and created a lot of relationships over there. Went over to Germany, and Albert was standing there at the airport with a little piece of paper that said Mark White on there, and he doesn't speak a lick of English, and he's got this Raleigh Fingers mustache. And anyway, we had a couple-hour drive back to his place in Geisling, down in South Germany in Bavaria. And we spent that first week learning how to talk German to dogs and how to handle a dog in German. And his son Corbinian was certainly played a big part in that, because he spoke English and he could really kind of be the translator middleman for me. But while we were there, we hunted pheasant, we hunted ducks, we hunted hare, killed some roe deer and did some blood tracking. We went stag hunting. We literally did every facet that these dogs could do in 1 week's time. And let me tell you, the Albert and Corbinian and his wife Petra, they're absolutely unbelievable and have really kind of become family to me. We went over to their daughter's wedding and have been over several times to visit and hunt.
Yeah,
So it's been
just
an
nice
awesome.
people. And you were gracious enough to share them with me when I went to the Hegewald here a couple of years ago, and I got to spend some time with them. That was pretty cool to see all they do and the different ways of doing things over there versus how we do it in the U.S. But just the salt of the earth.
They really are. I remember when you first started talking about going to the Hegewald and figuring out what town it was in and how close it was, and I was like, "Oh, you got to go meet Albert and his family. You'll absolutely love it, and they'll treat you like family." And it sounds like that's what they did.
Oh my gosh, yeah, 3 square meals a day. I'll tell you what. But
Oh
it,
yeah,
it was it was it was super helpful for me to be able to get the dog on, the German hares and the pheasants and the things that we were going to do at the test. So it helped me a lot to get the dog kind of get his head straight before we went to the test.
oh, absolutely. I can only imagine. Albert's in his neck of the woods. He is the dog man, and he does a lot of the things that you do. He has training days at his house, and really takes pride in teaching all his puppy buyers how to handle the dog. That's part of the deal. When you get a dog from him, he's got you handled through VJP and a little bit of what we're going to be talking about today.
Yep, yep, no doubt. So the first time you and I met, if I remember right, it was probably at the Arm Rooster, right?
Yeah, when I first got involved with GNA and the drought world, when the arm rooster came to Alabama and Demopolis, everybody knew I could do barbecue, and so I volunteered to feed everybody. And been every time it comes back to Demopolis, I gladly do it again. It's been awesome in a way that I can kind of pay back. Everybody that puts in all the hard work and service, the judges, and everybody in
Yep,
between.
yep. Awesome food. You always do a great job on that. That's for sure. So, we started being friends there, talking, and the next thing you know, you're calling me, and we're doing this and doing that, and you want some help with some dogs, and I'm like, why don't you just come up for a couple days? Because we could talk on the phone till we're blue in the face, but you decided to come up then, and we went through the whole deal with the force fetch, the wool post, and all the different things that come in between there. And that's kind of how our friendship kind of fostered, I guess I would say, and it just kind of grew since then.
Yeah, for sure. I just like a lot of people when they get their first bird dogs, started collecting books and videos, and I've got a huge library of stuff. But nothing beats having hands-on training and really learning how to do it, face to face with somebody like yourself. And then there's really at that time there was nothing solid on the internet or anywhere that I could find about woe post, and everybody that I talked to was kind of unfamiliar with it. And anyways, I know it's something that you really believe in, and I really believe in now.
And then when you were up there that last time, we shot a bunch of those videos, so that was pretty cool. You got involved with that, and Steve was up there, and yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah, well, that was a great experience and super pumped and grateful to be involved in that process as well. Had some
Yeah,
young dogs at the time, and it was perfect for the different stages of woe post that we were trying to present for your training videos and program that you have going now. That
yeah. And
is,
Travis,
in my opinion, the only and the best information that's out there that you can use for woe post.
yeah, yeah. And Travis does a great job putting the whole thing together. I mean, with all the different cameras he's got and stuff, and the videos really turned out great, and they're easy to learn off of. That's for sure.
Ain't no doubt, no doubt.
Mark, tell us a little bit about when you got started getting into the tests.
I kind of started off totally ass backwards. My second dog was such an all-star, 11-11, super high scores that I was encouraged to breed her. by some. And then I was also a little bit frowned upon to breeder because at that point I had not gone through a test and, couldn't really provide support for my puppy buyers. So when I did my first test, I bought Dr. Martin Kaufman's book, Prize One, and that was really kind of my backbone of learning, getting through my first test. But seeing as how I had some people for me breeding and some people not, I really wanted to prove all the naysayers wrong and really make a splash with my first Drahthaar going through the full testing system. Um, and winded up doing pretty daggum well with it. But I, like most people, when they go into their first test, was a nervous wreck. But yeah, the first test, it involves field search, rabbit track. They want to see the dog point, and some gun sensitivity. And even though I did good on my first test, I still didn't know a damn thing.
Yeah.
'Cause I
And
don't know.
the first test you're referring to is the VJP. Yep.
VJP. Yep,
Yep.
yep.
So not everybody knows what that first test is. So the VJP consists of, go ahead and say it again, Mark.
Field search, pointing, gun sensitivity, and the rabbit track.
Yep. And then our nose score goes off with the field search and the rabbit track combined. They put it all together to come up with a nose score. But
Yep.
there was no water in this test. I mean, unlike the NAVDA natural ability test where they have to enter the water, in our VJP puppy test, there is no water in this part of it at all. The water part takes place on HZP, which is the middle one, and the VGP, which is the utility test. What do you do to get your puppies ready for a VJP? What's your main thing that you like to do?
If you get a dog from me, it starts when these puppies, before they even get their eyes open, and we start putting some different kind of games in the puppy pen. We put duck wings and pheasant wings and rabbit furs and deer hides, but we also do some called super military training. All the canine and military dogs across the country do that. It's minor stimulation. You turn them over on their back and turn them upside down and put their feet on a cold ice towel. But then after that, as they start getting a little bit older, we start with getting them to use that nose. Kind of as soon as they get on the hard kibble, we get the dogs learning to use their nose by just scattering their food on the ground. Just pour when they get it's feed time. We pour it on the ground. And that dog's just starting to learn from a very young age, just use their nose to the ground, and sniff it all out.
Yeah, so now they got to hunt for it.
Yep, exactly,
So they're
exactly.
learning to hunt for food. Yep. Yep. And
Yep,
they're using their nose.
exactly. And then we
Yep.
kind of progress from that and start putting it in a line, as if they're going down a track. So these puppies are learning to follow that scent trail. And well, it seems a little much to some people, but I'll start making a long line of that. And then as they get good with that, I'll spread it out and put a little small pile with a couple in between and kind of do it all over the garage or, in the house or a back porch.
One of the things that I think is kind of important too, and I'm sure you do this, Mark, when the dogs are concentrating on eating their food, I like to drop a feed pan, maybe 10, 20 feet away and make a little noise so that kind of simulate the sound of a gun going off. And they don't even think about it when they're eating. So I don't know if you do that, but I do that on a consistent basis where I'll
Yeah,
drop a feed pan, make a little noise.
100%. We collect bubble wrap and stuff like that. So even when the puppies, before they even get their eyes open and they're in the pen, definitely while they're eating, we're popping bubble wrap and dropping pans and making loud noise, kind of really working on that gun sensitivity at a very young age.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So then from there, where do you go? Once they get to be 6 weeks old, do you start working the mouth a little bit and turn them upside down consistently so they submit or
Yeah, 100%. I call it the sequence, something that I learned from you. It starts out with, at every test, there's a lot going on with the sequence that I call. But at every test, the judge is going to be looking at their teeth. So the first thing part of this sequence is you look at their bite, the front of their teeth, and then you open their mouth and look in their mouth, just like the judges are going to do. And I actually start saying teeth, teeth, teeth when I'm doing stuff with their mouth. And then when the judges are down the road, when you're at your test, the judges are looking at their teeth and it's a total stranger. I just say teeth a couple times, nice quietly. The dog understands what's going on and sits there like a total pro. But then after you look at their teeth, you wind up putting your hand in their mouth until they submit to that. And at first, the dog's gonna shake his head and go bananas with it, and you got to get the dog to submit to hand in the mouth. And it's really the first part of force fetch, which comes way down the road. But at 6, 8, 7, 8 weeks old, we're already starting this with the puppies, so that down the road the force fetch is that part comes a little easier.
I could elaborate on that just a little bit, and that would be those teeth are very sharp. So put a glove on and stick your hand in their mouth. And the first several times you do this, if you can just get a second, and sometimes you don't even get a second because they're fighting and they're really wiggling. They're trying to get out of them, what you're trying to do to them. So your hand is in their mouth and they're wiggling and fighting and trying to get out of the situation. And then all of a sudden they go, ah, boom, take your hand out. You got it. Okay, so there's your half a second or whatever you got. And now we're going to build off of that. We have a half a second or a second. And the next time, maybe we go for 2 seconds. And then maybe a few days later, we're getting 4 and 5 seconds. And before you know it, a week later, you're putting your hand in their mouth and you just go, okay, do whatever you got to do because you've done it so many times. And I recommend doing this a couple, 3 times a day when they're young puppies. And before you know it, they're pros. And like you said, it's a little bit ago, that's the start of the hold for the force fetch, which is going to happen when they're 4 and 5 months old when you start working hold with objects.
Yeah, for sure. It's the biggest thing with this part of the sequence is that you can't let them win. If you let them shake out of it or whatever, then they've started to win the battle. You just got to make sure that you win that battle and like you said, eventually you start being able to have your hand in there for however long you want. They don't even care.
Yeah, it's the same thing with when you tip them upside down and have them on their back. Boy, some of them little puppies just go crazy. And if you can get yourself a second or two and then bail out of it and then do it again 4 or 5 hours later, and then just keep building off of that, just like the mouth. Before you know it, you're going to have them laying there for a minute and they'll just hang out and wait for you. You done yet? Kind of what they're thinking. Yeah.
So the second step in that sequence is you wind up putting the dog on its back. I like to do it on a table, like a workbench or something like that, or your training table. And you get the dog to submit completely on their back. And again, it's another one of these steps that they're going to wiggle worm like crazy, and then you'll finally get that deep breath, sigh of relief, and then they just lay there like they go limp on you. And then the next step from there is you grab all 4 legs and you apply a little vertical pressure on them, not necessarily lifting them off the table, but just lifting them up. And there's another step that they're going to be wiggle worming, trying to bite your hands. Might want to have some gloves on during this step. And just establishing who the leader is, the pack leader is, who the boss is, and just getting them to submit to you, that they start looking up to you as the leader.
Mark, how about water exposure?
It's different for every puppy and every time of the year, but typically when these puppies are at my house before they leave and go home, is when we get a heavy downfall rain, I go take them for long walks and through the fields and in the woods and stuff and try to find puddles or a little creek or running water. And I get the dogs walking through puddles, just getting their feet wet for the very first time. And at as young an age as I possibly can, is literally as soon as we get some heavy downfall rains, when these puppies are even 6 and 8 weeks old, just as soon as they're walking, that's when we're doing water exposure and kind of taking it on from there.
You know how that really works great is when you get in a location like that and you cross that little creek or whatever happens to be, and they're on this side of the creek and you're on the other side, and you keep walking. Before you know it, they're like, "Oh my God, he's leaving me!" And they want to cross and be with you, so they normally can cross that little, 6 inches of water to get over there. So it is a great way to do it. I love that method.
Yeah, for sure. Down south where I'm at, I try to always have my puppies, in that December, January time frame, so that by the time spring gets here and these dogs are going home, and they've been with their owners for a little bit, it's warming up pretty good around here, and they like the way that cool water feels when it's nice and warm outside. But from puddles and creeks, you take it up to ponds and there's a lot of different ways to get that next step into the water where they walk and don't feel the bottom anymore. Some dogs just naturally go in there wide open, and some other dogs need a little bit of encouragement. Normally I'll have an older dog around and they're swimming like fish in the water, and that normally encourages them. Well, if he can do it, I can do it type thing. But I've done it all too. I've stripped down to my shorts and gone swimming when a dog won't do it, and that normally helps. And I think, Joe, I've seen you do a few different options, ways of doing it too.
Yeah, I'll take them out in a kayak if they're, if it's a warm weather. We're in July in Wisconsin or June, and the water's warm enough. I'll just set them down, get out in the kayak, and then they have to swim back. Um, I'm not going to take and throw them in, or I'm not going to throw them off the bank, but I'll certainly put them in a kayak, and they'll be all happy that we're going for a boat ride, and then I'll pick them up and set them down, and away they go. Some of them will follow me in a kayak for 5 minutes. The next one will swim right back to shore. And usually after you do it a few times, they enjoy it and they want to follow you. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure. I think it just, if the breeder that had the puppies when they're young, if he's able to kind of establish some of that stuff, and then when you get home, you kind of keep progressing with it. All dogs move at their own pace, but it's bred into them. They're gonna swim and get in the water. They grow to love it pretty quick.
Yeah, no doubt. So at what point in time do you guys normally get your dog on some birds? Like a pigeon or whatever you happen to have.
Oh, you gotta have, if you're gonna raise a bird dog, you gotta have birds, and I certainly believe in pigeons. They're super hardy. They fly back to the pen. You get to use them over and over again. So I'm pretty much before these dogs are going home, they've been exposed to live pigeons. I'll lock the bird's wings and put them in the puppy pen and let them kind of chase it around and chew on them a little bit. You can normally they can handle a lot before you need to rescue the bird. But
Yeah.
we do that at a very, very young age, and then kind of that progresses out into the field. And you know, before I start putting them in launchers or anything like that, I'll just tuck their head underneath their wing and plant a bird. Um, if it's going to be a long walk for the puppies and I have it planted at the end or something like that, then I just make sure that bird's good and asleep when I put it down there. And but yeah, you go through going through long walks in the woods and fields, and having some planted birds out there that they can always, bringing a young pup in downwind type situation. But yeah, we roll right into it right away, and when before everybody that gets a dog from me, and I encourage everybody, anybody even listening to this, and this is your first dog, if you don't have pigeons and a pigeon coop, then you need to get on it because it's the only way to kind of get rolling. Unless you live in wild bird country, which that I'd say there's probably a small percentage that have just 100% access to wild birds all the time.
A real small percentage. I think it's for me, it's nice to have both because I like to use the pigeons for the dirty work for teaching, teaching steadiness, and then they fly right back to the coop, and you just keep using them again, and then when it comes time to finish them off, then we're going to put them on some game birds. So I don't know, that seems to work pretty good. But I wanted to go back to that puppy walk a little bit and talk about putting a check cord on these young puppies. It's pretty important to run them with maybe only an 8 or 10 foot check cord when they're 8 weeks old. Just just so you can step on a cord to catch them, and then they get used to dragging that cord because you're going to be using that check cord later on for teaching them to quarter left and right and left and right. And the biggest thing I like it for too is when they get to be independent, they don't want to be caught. Well, you can step on that check cord and hey, sorry, buddy, I got you. So check cord's pretty important.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of that one of the phases in the VJP is, field search and the dog learning to use their nose. So I put like you said, I put the check cord on them at a young age, let them drag it around in the field as we're learning to do fall and feather, going from edge to edge, and that type of thing. And it even is an extension to the VGP, which is at the end when you're doing blood tracks with a long line. They're getting used to that rope in between their
Yep,
legs, on their hanging from their neck and stuff. And a lot going on with that check cord, establishing a point of contact, and you
yep.
know when you're really teaching fall and feather with as the dog gets a little bit older and working the dog back and forth in a field. Yeah. Check cord on a young dog makes them easy to catch, and but there's also just a lot going on there.
When you get this young dog, 8 weeks old or 9 weeks old, whenever you get it, you're basically working towards that utility test, that VGP, the whole time. But you just got to know when to press the buttons and when not to press them. Like, for example, you and I have talked about this several times about not doing too much obedience with this 8, 10, 12-week old puppy because over obedience can make the dog so it gets sticky and you really don't see their natural run. So what do you do with your young dogs? Do you teach them sit and down as a 8, 10-week old puppy?
Absolutely not. And I learned that the hard way. I think most people, when they get their first dog, they want to get them home and, sit and teach the dog how to sit and stay here, that. But I've learned the hard way that, if you do too much sit here, stay on a young dog, that it'll definitely make them sticky. You want that dog to be wide open. You can always reel a dog in, but you can't put that juice into them. So I like to wait to the, later on down the road for the sit here, stay stuff. I mean, I feel like you can, within a very short time frame, teach a dog to sit. But again, it's once you take that out of them, it's tough to
Right.
put it back to them.
I mean, you still want the dog to come when you tell them. So I mean, that's great. Um, so you can continue with that kind of work, but to teach them to stay and sit at 8, 10 weeks old and down and don't move, well, now we got a dog that's not going to run for you. So at least that's what I've experienced over some of the years that we've been training dogs.
I like to call that, the obedience that I'm teaching a young dog, it's functional obedience. So when you put your dog in the kennel, everybody needs to use a kennel with a young dog that they need to learn self-control and they can't go bananas in there. And, functional obedience to me is if you open up that kennel door, whether it's a stall or a box, and that dog barges out, boom, door in the face. I like to just call it all functional obedience. At some point when the dogs get a little bit older, I make them sit before they come in the house, sit before they go out of the house. I don't like it when a dog's, knocking me over to go in or knocking
Yeah.
me over to come out of the kennel and stuff like that. So,
Pick your battles. Yep, that's right. That's like trash breaking. I mean, you're not going to let that young puppy jump up on, your wife when she comes home from work when she has her good clothes on. You don't want them jumping on your car doors because that's pretty irritating. When you come up, you got a brand new car and the puppy jumps up in there and scratches. So that kind of stuff you want to curb and not allow.
you never want to take your dog, a young dog, to the skeet range and have them listen to you shoot skeet all day. You kind of got to, progress into that. I know you carry a starter pistol pretty much at all times when you're training, Joe.
Yep.
As a dog's watching a young bird fly away or even chasing it, using that starter pistol to give a few pops as it's focused on that bird and running away from you. Um, Definitely an easy way to kind of get gun sensitivity. I've never had any issues with that just because we've started at such a young age. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit, Joe.
Well, so like you said, we start with the feed pans early on. getting the dog chasing the birds, and like you had mentioned, and while they're chasing, then we'll shoot the training pistol and once or twice or whatever it happens to be. And after a while, it's not a problem at all. In my case, I have my dogs all on the chain gang, and there could be 10, 15 dogs tied out to the chain gang, and we're out in the field a couple hundred yards, and we might have the older dogs out, and they're hearing the guns popped all the time, so they get so used to it at my house that it's secondary. It's like they hear the gun go off, they're like, "Oh, it's time for some fun." So,
Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
there's no doubt about it. But anyway, so as far as how much bird exposure do you think they need before the puppy test, before the VJP? I mean, we need to get them on a few birds, obviously, and if they're pointing, that's great. You're probably good because they don't have to be steady for the test. They just basically have to point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't. Maybe you can overdo it. I haven't overdone it yet. But I try to, integrate birds as far as say that first year of their life. I try to do birds a couple times a month. And then as we get closer to the test, I might even slim it up a little bit, especially if they're pointing good to like once a month type situation.
Yep, I'd say the one thing that you want to be careful of, especially if these dogs are pointing, just don't make the mistake and bring yourself these quail home that only fly 40 yards and you can't stop the dog and they take off and then they start catching them. Now we're going to have problems with pointing. So until you get the wool post done, you're not going to be able to stop that dog unless you're holding on the check cord the whole time.
For sure. I've had so many puppy buyers over the years that they're like, "Oh, I got 10 quail," and I'm like, "Oh no, don't do that yet."
Yeah,
Just because those birds, like you said, they only fly 40, 50. You're lucky if you get 75 yards out of a pin raised bird, and then that dog's going to run over there and get it because that the pigeon or chucker or whatever, it don't have enough energy to fly anymore because the fly pins at these quail houses are not that big. So,
right.
again, another reason I highly encourage using pigeons.
Oh God, by all means. So, anyways, I think that's the bird portion of it. As far as the rabbit track, which is very important in the test because the multiplier is high. Um, doing drags are great, but I think if you can get the opportunity to get them on live rabbits, it's much better because it's different to have a live rabbit versus a dead rabbit that's drugged through the grass. Do you guys normally get your pups on live rabbits where you're at, Mark?
Yeah, it is a little bit tougher for me, at least where I live. I did just move to a new place, and I've seen quite a few rabbits on our gravel road and stuff. So I'm looking forward to a little bit more of an abundance of wild rabbits. You can catch them. I've been at your place, and we've caught a few in some traps that you have, and it seems easy around your neck of the woods, but kind of an easy way that I've learned, at least in my area where we at least hunt and land around here, is getting out at daybreak and going for a buggy ride, and or even at sunset, right at dusk, the rabbits start to come out. And I'll ride around and cover a bunch of ground, and you seem to always find a rabbit on the edge of the gravel road, getting ready to go do what rabbits do. I don't know. But as soon as I see a rabbit, I'll try to cover my dog. Normally, I have my buddy or my wife or my kid with me or something, and we'll try to distract the dog where he doesn't see it. And if he does see it, kind of cover his eyes, give it just a split second, and go up and put the dog on the rabbit scent and see what they do. And they kind of normally put the pieces together, but I even do kind of a progression from the food tracks in the house. We wind up doing drags outside with dead rabbits and deer hides and ducks and stuff like that. So I've already been really working on the tracking thing. And I got a goofy little thing that I do that you always laugh about. I learned it from a good friend of mine over in Georgia, Casey Lee, and it's the bacon drags. But you get a piece of thick cut slab smoked bacon, and you tie it on your string, and you drag that thing through the grass, and just like you would anything else.
Does it have
And
to be a particular flavor, or you don't care about what flavor? I mean, do you like maple, or what do they prefer?
See, this is the kind of crap I get from my silly bacon drags. They're actually not my silly bacon drags. They're Casey's bacon drags, so he can catch all the shit about it. But
Oh, okay, all right, okay, good.
that piece of bacon is leaving a smoky, oily scent, and he said that he doesn't even really introduce fur or any kind of drags until he can point to the ground, and that dog knows what's going on, and it kind of associates maybe a little that bacon treat at the end of the drag. So as long as you kind of do something to get going, whether it's stomping out foot drags, things like that, getting that dog to use its nose and follow scent. And there's quite a few things when a dog is learning picking up scent. They're actually the dog's smelling the rabbit, the deer, the duck, whatever it is, the scent that's being left behind. The dog's smelling the disturbance of the dirt, actually, which seems kind of
Exactly.
weird. You go smell the ground and then you kick it up and rub it around real quick and you smell it again. It smells different.
Yep.
To a dog, it smells crazy different. So there is a little bit of foundation stuff before, as far as getting the dog to follow a track, as you're leading up to go finding wild rabbits. But, you can't do enough wild rabbits. They're kind of hard to come by sometimes. So, always have traps out, always be looking, and the more wild rabbits you can get your dog on, the better you're going to be.
I think you and I talked about the giving them a little command. I mean, some guys go track, track, track. I get my dogs kind of excited. I go, "Sook, sook, sook." And I've got my dogs out here. When I do that now, I got a dog. I'm getting ready for the test. And one I did one last year. I ran through all the tests. And when I give that, they go like, "Holy shit!" And their nose is down. They're like, "Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?" And they're all pumped up. So they get used to that noise, and that means track. And they're just ready to rock and roll on it. So I think it's important to come up with some sort of a, whether you say track, 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 or sook, 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 or whatever it is, so they understand that's a track that we're going to go on right now. Whether it's deer or rabbit or whatever it happens to be. But the one thing that I wanted to talk about, now that we've talked about tracking and we've talked about bird work, always try to find time to do both. If they're really good at tracking, maybe you do a little more pointing. If they're really good at pointing, maybe you do you do a little more tracking. But I always find balance. I think balance is pretty important because maybe you did too much tracking. Now your pointing kind of suffered from at the test. And as a young dog, they can pick up with whatever you do. If you do too much of that, now they're going to be better at that and not as good at that. We'll try to work on their weaknesses and make sure you balance your training. I think that's pretty important.
For sure, having solid balance is super key. But the difference between when you see a dog that's badass, that's like, oh man, or that's the dog of your dreams, that type of stuff just doesn't happen by chance. I mean, it is bred into every one of these dogs, but you got to be consistent with it and you got to put the time in each and every day. And I certainly try to vet all the puppy buyers and let them know that to have that dog of your dreams, you have to put in the time and be consistent with it.
And I agree 100% because I put time into every dog that I have in for training. But if you only have one dog, honest to God, if you can just find yourself, what, 20 minutes or half an hour a day to do some of this small stuff, it's not like it takes 3 hours a day, right? I mean, if you
No,
can spend
not
a
at
little
all.
time working mouth habits, take them for a walk in the morning, take them for a walk, it doesn't take that, and it's fun. So I mean,
For
it's fun
sure.
stuff.
You really just it's the first year VJP. It's all about exposure and putting your dog through life situations and hunting situations. Because this is a natural abilities test. So if you ever find yourself getting upset or frustrated with any point in your training, and normally it comes after VJP. You certainly, when you feel yourself get frustrated, you need to hang it up and go have a beer and chill out for
Yeah.
a little. Don't ever get mad at your dog for not performing. 'Cause normally
Well,
the problem's not what's on the front of the leash; it's what's on the back of the leash.
yeah,
Um,
and normally it's because you move too fast. So whenever you have a problem and you're trying to go to the next step and the dog is struggling with it, let's back up to a step or two back and go to what they're good at, and then move slowly to kind of move forward with the next steps you want them to learn. So, because usually the handlers get a little bit, anxious and they want to get them doing more than what they're really ready for. So, but a couple of tips that I wanted to slip in there is one, we wanted to talk about a slip lead on these drags or on these tracks. I think a slip lead is pretty important. So I usually put one on the dogs as I approach, or have it on and ready as I approach that track. The judge says, "Hey, we got a track for you, so and so. Come on over here and put your dog on the track." Well, if you have a slip lead, you can give them the old suck, 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 and put them down, their nose down on it. And if they have a nose full, we'll let go of one end of that slip lead, and it's a smooth transition to go down that track, and not a real choppy one versus having a hold of the collar. And either way works, but I think a slip lead is pretty important. Maybe they have it, but they don't have it that great. You can hang on to it a little bit longer. You can walk down the track 30 meters. So you have the opportunity to walk down and have that slip lead in your hand. And once that dog gets a nose full and it is tracking 100%, let the thing go and just let them work.
For sure, that there is a few key points to the slip lead. I have seen some goofy shit out there with people that weren't prepared for the slip lead. They didn't know what a slip lead was when they got there. They're pulling out parachute cord, maybe it's some webbing out of the back of their truck. You need that thing to probably be about 10 feet long. That way, the dogs, when you have both end of it, it's about 5 feet up. And when you go down, you need to have it in. For me, it's my left hand, so I can point down at the ground and give the sook, sook, sook command. But also, something I learned the hard way because I wasn't prepared one day was I was using a random piece of string in the back of my truck, and there was a knot in it.
Oh,
And so as the dog was pulling away, it felt that knot tug on the back of its collar, and the dog stopped and looked back at me, and as if I was giving it a correction of some kind. So that day, I learned that no knots in your slip lead. You just put a slip knot around your wrist so that you don't let go or whatever, have a mishap there. And then I also learned that if you put the slip lead over the top of the collar and back to you as the dog pulls away, that rope comes back at you. Whereas if you put it on the underneath side of the collar and let go, it might pop the dog on the back of the head as it's pulling away. So certainly a few little key points with the slip lead that I've learned. Maybe it's not a problem for everybody else, but I struggled with it a couple
yeah,
times.
everybody's always got their own little deal. I've seen like flat stuff, and I like to use the what they use to start an engine. That it's like a ripcord for starting your motor, but only a quarter inch, and it's almost like it's got a coating on it, and so it's slippery. And I run it through the D ring, and then the other end I have a horn with a hole drilled in it, a small horn, probably about 4 inches long, and I fit it in between my fingers, like so it's like a grip. And then I hold on to that horn and I just let that end go, and bam, they're gone. But there's 100 different ways you can do it. So that's all great. But there's one last thing that I wanted to talk about as far as a tip that can help people is, and I see this where hardly anybody has it. And I use it whether I'm judging a group of dogs or whether I'm running a group of or running a dog. And it's to have a small, I call it a puffer. It's just a small baby powder in my pouch. And because there's plenty of times when you're out approaching this where this bird is liberated and you have some idea where it's at, but you're never really sure of the wind because there isn't much wind. And this way you can check the wind and you can figure out which way to approach that location of where those birds are at. Because if you're coming in from the wrong way and then the dog runs that bird over and it flushes, and then we got to chase, now we're going to have a hard time getting a point the second time around, because as judges we have to be able to see that dog point in order to pass the test. So it's important for handlers to have a puffer in their pouch, and obviously water for the dogs. But I can't stress that baby powder puffer enough. And like I said, me as a judge, I carry it because hardly anybody ever has it. Because I'm as a judge, I want to know if I can help the handler to know which way to be able to approach these birds. What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, for sure. I, you know, it, I carry some wind indicator. I'm a bow hunter, so I'm always paying attention to the wind. Even a lighter works. You can see which way the flames blowing type thing. But knowing which way the wind's going is kind of pretty part of being a bird dog man for sure. So, having a little travel baby powder works great. It's super cheap. You can buy the big bottle and refill it. Definitely cheaper than buying, some name brand windicator that they sell at the Bass Pro or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, knowing which way the wind's blowing, so you know how to work your dog into it, so the dog can be successful is certainly key.
Yep. And if
Mark.
anybody out there is interested in taking a look at training videos that we have on our website, uh, feel free to check it out. There's 4 or 5 great videos, and we're going to keep adding to it every year. Travis is my producer, and Travis comes out to the kennel in Wisconsin and does a great job. And this coming summer, we plan on doing another video so we can add to the library.
For
Mark.
sure. Maybe you'll get me to come back out and be Vanna White again.
Yeah,
Yes.
that'd be great.
Hey, Mark, I got a question for you. Your
Yeah, for sure.
pups, how do you keep them nutritionally fulfilled?
So but you ask 10 different guys that, you'll get 10 different answers. We've already got the dogs on hard food before they go home, and I feed a brand of food called a Nuck Shuck. Again, you ask 10 different people, you'll get 10 different dog foods. But we feed a young pup 3 and 4 times a day. I've also, Joe and I were talking not long ago about a good friend of ours lets them free eat so that it's not a battle to see who can get done the quickest. So when I have 8 puppies here at the house, um, normally have 8 different little bowls out, and they're just like, oh, go to town gobbling shit up as fast as they can. And I've been thinking about, letting them free feed so it's not a race to get to the end. Letting them have as much as they want, kind of thing. They know when to say when. They'll overdo it a time or two, and it'll be uncomfortable. But they'll learn. But before this conversation that Joe and I had this past week, I was feeding 3 to 4 times a day, letting the dogs have time to process their food where they didn't get bloated and that kind of thing. What are your thoughts on feed these days, Joe?
Well, I think after watching my buddy Darwin Paddock's puppies, and the way they were eating and just going over and grabbing a little munch and then having a little bit and then go back and lay down and come and eat a little more. I liked it because um, there's so many of these dogs that get in for training. You put their food down and they can't get it in their throat fast enough. I have a DK, 2-year-old DK here right now that I'm training in Arizona, and boy, I tell you what, I have to make that dog sit and stay, and I make it stare at that food for 20 or 30 seconds prior to feeding it, because if not, that thing is going to take it out of my hand and eat it before it's even sat down. And so I'm going to teach a little control there. And I think part of that is because, like we talked about earlier, you've got 8, 10 puppies and they're all fighting to get at that food. They learn that they have to be aggressive in order to get enough in their belly before somebody else eats it. And that free feeding thing is real intriguing to me. And if down the road I decide to have another litter, I probably will try that. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. I got my F litter hitting the ground in about a week or so. So I think I'm gonna give that feed method a shot this go around and see if I can prevent the chow hound.
Yeah,
And kind of make them a little bit less like they got to race to the bottom of the bowl when they
right.
get home. Because once that's kind of in them and they get home, I don't know how the hell you slow one down other than get those silly food bowls that they have to do. And we use them. We have them here at the house. I mean, it's we the thing with dog training is you're always kind of learning and always trying to better the process and stuff, and you never know everything with it. And I mean, literally just last week, here we are talking about kind of a new method that some people probably been doing a long time, but it's kind of new to me. But I'm going to give it a shot with this F litter that's about to hit the ground.
Yep, I'll be curious to know how it works for you, but I think Darwin's been doing it for the last couple litters anyways, and when I got to witness it, I thought it was pretty cool. So good stuff.
Mark, people looking for a dog, how do they connect with you?
So normally, when I'm having a litter come in, I normally have a handful of names, people that have been hunting with my dogs, and people that have seen other puppies that other owners have that have come from me, and kind of just the more involved I am, the kind of the word gets out, and I do post it on some of the Drahthaar social media pages, but. Um, Basically, telephone, email, and post on social media is how you find out if I got a litter coming. I didn't post it on the GNA website this time. Normally they're pretty much spoken for beforehand, but I do have a couple spots left. But I go through an interview process with every single person that gets a puppy from me, so they know exactly what to expect out of me, and kind of what I expect out of them too. I love for everybody to go through the testing. It's not a 1,000,000% make or break deal, but I try to make sure that everybody is into it and talk people into it. It's a little intimidating for somebody that coming from the lab world or that's never done it before. But also want to make sure that these dogs are going to hunting homes, and that the people are prepared for it, have access to birds, or maybe can build a pigeon loft, and have the wherewithal to give this dog the best shot at being successful. It's I've, I've I've sold some dogs to some situations that I probably shouldn't have. It's a guy that works offshore. It's tough for them to be able to put the time in because they wind up fighting their family at home. So, or a trucker and stuff like that. Not that those people can't get it done, but it takes a lot. It's a commitment, and again, I said it before, but to have that dog of your dreams doesn't happen by chance. We do our best as breeders to match the very best female, the very best male together, and kind of push the breed forward, to try to have that best Drahthaar to ever hit the ground. But if Michael Jordan's mom never took him to the basketball court, he probably wouldn't have turned into the best basketball player of all time. So yeah, so if you pass the vet test, and we agree, then as a breeder you can expect a lot out of me. I want you to be extremely successful in the test, and I'm going to teach you how to woe post and force break and all the little trick tips and tricks along the way to get good scores, and have the dog that is just a hell of a hunting companion.
Yeah.
Can you get us some contact info that we can put in the show notes for people that are looking to get a dog in the future? Maybe reach out to you and get started with that vetting?
Yeah, absolutely. My email address, I'll just give it to you now.
Okay.
It's Mark White, MarkWhite, BBQ @gmail.com. And you can also call me on my cell phone. It's 970-376-7848.
Right on.
That's exciting. I can't wait to see them. And incidentally, that dog that's having the puppies, I was able to help you train, Chili.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We Chili has just been an awesome dog for us. She's a dog that anybody can handle. My son can handle her, a stranger can handle her. And that's something really what I'm shooting for. A dog that the average Joe can train and handle and be an awesome hunting companion. And just so happens that one of the puppies out of this litter is going to be going to Alaska, where Joe and I actually took a couple dogs up there this past fall and filmed a TV show that's going to be coming out at the end of February. And so the guy that took us on, that had us on this TV show, Dr. Bob, is going to be getting a puppy from me, and I think it's going to be integrated into next season. Going to take the dog out there to him, and he'll let him have the dog for the summertime and get used to riding on an airplane, going fishing, and then we're going to get the dog back and get him trained up and ready for the next bird season out in Alaska.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, it should be awesome.
Yep, I think this pretty much covers it. But it's been fun talking about all this different stuff. I hope that people get enough out of this and learn some stuff that can help them through their VJP and puppy process. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody should glean a little something out of it. I really think that, super thankful for you letting me in and letting me come up to your place and teaching me everything you know. I've certainly adopted a lot of the methods and honed in my skills tremendously, and kind of owe you the world as far as that comes. And, I'm a firm believer in all of it, and your training program and the videos that I was able to come up and help you and Travis make were just second to none experience.
Yeah, it's been fun stuff. I'm kind of planning out our next podcast, and I'm looking forward to. We're going to be meeting with the folks from Phytovite, so that's going to be interesting. We're going to talk about puppy and dog nutrition and all the different things that they offer. And one of the guys who started this whole deal from Phytovite is a veterinary, so that's going to be fun hearing from him. I'm excited about that.
Yeah, stay tuned. That'll be next month, so check back.
I think we covered it, man.
All right, guys.
All right.
Very good.
This episode on the Vom Seymour playlist is sponsored by Phytovite. Phytovite is a daily canine supplement, adding vitamins, organic trace minerals, probiotics, prebiotics, and digestive enzymes, all in easy-to-feed powders you can just mix into their meals. Learn more at drschoicesupplements.com. See more and get more with Phytovite.